Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven Fulham podcast, your Fulham podcast from down under. Yep, it's a new voice here tonight. My name's Elton and I'm going to be your host for my sins. And we're here to discuss what can we say, frustrating afternoon that was last Saturday uh, versus Wolves. Here to discuss it all with me, I've got Sam. Good evening, Sam.
Hello, Father. I like how you are introducing yourself like the people haven't done 100 podcasts with you already. But you know what? I'm very, very happy to be here. An astute introduction for a horrible, horrible game. So I look forward to this.
Well, I don't know that it was a horrible game, but it's just annoying.
Mm.
We've also got Skibby. I really am struggling with that, but never mind. Skibby,
Nice. Hey, nice to see you
how are
guys
you?
again, and I'm glad to be back. But yeah, I mean, you can go with Skippy. Just throw in any consonants you want. I'll answer. It's all good.
One day we'll get the full background on that, but
It's really boring.
Not
but
right
yeah,
now.
it's fine. Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
sure. I'm sure it's a great story. Well, let's talk about what happened on Saturday, guys. We had an opportunity to continue our form and make it three on the bounce, and it was, I guess, too good to be true, wasn't it? And we certainly had our chances, and it could have been a very, very different situation by half time, but it was not to be. And yeah, we went down with that final kick of the game in a disappointing kind of a way. Sam, can we? Well, actually, both of you, can we talk about um, the lineup? I guess just to kick off, we sort of thrashed this topic pretty hard in advance of the game. I've got my phone beeping here at me, which is really not going to be good.
Yeah.
We kind of discussed this lineup in some detail before the game, knowing that Marco Silva doesn't like to change things and doesn't like to change a winning team. Sam, can I ask you first? How do you think? Do you think Silva's decision to stick with an unchanged lineup was a good thing?
Look, at the moment, I'm reading a lot of books about logic and statistics and economics and all that sort of stuff. And so sometimes you can actually make the right decision in theory, but in practice, it doesn't actually work. I think he actually. I understood what he was doing. He was trying to ride off momentum. I don't think Silva made the wrong move, but also this just didn't work. This just didn't work. I mean, if I was in his position, God forbid, but if I was in his position, I can kind of understand where he was coming from. I mean, obviously, I would have started Japolinia because I want my firstborn son to be named after him. But yeah, Silva's allowed to make mistakes. Silva's allowed to make mistakes, and I'll let Skivvy tear into him.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right?
It is.
I mean, on paper, and what we saw from the last two games, like Lukic and Reed were reborn. Lukic was flowing with confidence. He did all the sort of the dirty work, but also some absolutely immense central midfield play. And part of me, and I think I said on the last pod, which was I would keep it the same, and I would keep Molineux on the bench. Nothing personal. Just you've got a winning formula. It's working. You've got a player who's full of confidence again, and we're now sort of seeing a sort of player who, in January, believe it if you or don't believe it, but he was linked with Napoli. He was kind of all-round perfect centre mid, and we were sort of thinking, let him keep going with him. Don't shatter his confidence. And then we get into the game, and he looked a shell of himself. It's almost like he knew Molineux was on the bench to replace him, and he just kind of had that kind of breathing down his neck that our star centre mid is on the bench. I'm going to get pulled at any minute, and that's sort of for me how he played. But I mean, I won't focus on just Lukic. I think there was players such as Wilson. They were kind of players that you thought could make a difference here. They've got a goal in the last game, could push on. Yeah, he had a massive chance, but in a nutshell, I thought the 11 that we had was strong enough to tackle Wolves, as well as the bench. The bench was probably the strongest I've ever seen Fulham have. You know, we had sort of Willian and Paulinho on the bench with Kenny to come on, and Broja, and they just looked amazing. Whereas Wolves, on the other hand, were just much, much weaker. I mean, we talked about Jose Sarr being a risk, the goalkeeper. Pedro Neto clearly wasn't ready, but they risked him anyway, and then that faltered when he limped off with his hamstring injury. And you thought, with Pedro Neto gone, this is ours for the taking. And it's almost, I couldn't really blame Silva for any of it, really. It just looked like the players on the day just potentially were not up for the task. But I think that's probably a little bit harsh. I would say that Wolves actually played much, much better than I anticipated, to be honest.
Yeah. Jose Sarr, right? Okay. Since when is Jose Sarr basically Manuel Neuer incarnate? Like, what is going? Like, I've never seen him play that good. I mean, I know he's a Portuguese international. I know he's very well regarded, but I've not seen that. Like, he was ridiculous, but more just frustrating. And we were talking about this pre-game. Mario Lemina, right? Of former Fulham fame, and a part of the most frustrating Scott Parker season I think I've ever encountered, even though there has been worse seasons. But he just ruined us the whole game. And it was so annoying because I remember this player and like he's just so much more refined and just so much more present, and he just ruined my day. And it was so annoying. It's like, yeah, Dad, you can go. Yeah,
I'm gonna jump in, and now I realize part of the work that Jack does. I asked you about the lineup, and you're actually giving flowers to Mario Lemina. But anyway,
you knew this. You knew what this was going to be, and I will not apologize.
Back to the lineup thing, and I think it's really interesting, and you touched on it, Skibby, that you can't blame Silva for picking that starting lineup. There's every justification for it, and any manager would kind of find that completely defensible. Mm-hmm. And you have to also say that we also created a lot of chances, and we looked the better side in the first half. So. You can't really blame his team selection. It was kind of working, and we actually looked pretty good. But you're so right about Sasa Lukic. I'm a pretty harsh critic of Sasa Lukic. I sort of like him, but he does frustrate me. I know there's a really good player in there, and I just think we just don't see it often enough. And is it possible that we, Fulham Football Club, have the most fragile personalities who kind of on their day when things are all going well and things are good at home and maybe good down the park and down the pub, I don't know, we are raucous and so difficult. And when we hear voices or footsteps, metaphorically, that you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it felt with Lukic. He's had 2 really solid games. Not just solid, he looked great. And Paulinho sitting on the bench, maybe he just didn't feel like he deserved to be there with the player that is João, and he just couldn't grab the opportunity and carry on the way he's been playing. And it's kind of disappointing to me that it turned out that way. I mean, I thought he didn't have a terrible game, and there was one moment, I think there was a little back heel, which was really lovely. Can't remember exactly when that was, but it was very, very lovely. I think we've just lost Sam there.
When Wilson got set away, wasn't it? I think it was a back heel into to Iwobi, and then Iwobi put Wilson through.
Yes.
So it was a very nice move, and you thought,
I mean, it actually started that whole move. You're right.
And you're thinking, he's growing into the game a little bit, but it just didn't push on. And I think you're quite right. I think I wouldn't even blame him fully. I think there's a number of players there, and controversially, I think I'll add one name to the mix who I know from reading Fulham Twitter, there's a lot of, or Fulham X, I should say, there's a lot of love for him. But for me, Tosin Adarabioyo is very hit and miss with me. He can have an absolute stormer, really looking solid. You think him and Bassi completely, the next generation centre-back type, of athleticism. But there's just some times where he seems to have too much time on the ball, goes for the Hollywood pass and just pings it straight to another or to the opposition. And it's just quite a frustrating watch. And you're thinking for him to sort of play that way where we know that he can be a very solid player, Diop has that in him as well. It's just very much the 100%. Kind of the two that we have. And then you can't go with Bassi and Ream because you know how the two left-sided went against Spurs and I think that was Burnley as well. But just that was a train wreck. But
no, you're absolutely right. I thought it certainly wasn't Tosin's best game. And the guys always laugh at me. I used to be a very harsh critic of Tosin. I still am for moments because, and maybe it's just that feeling and that it just feels like he thinks he's better than he is. And I know that is pretty harsh. I don't know the guy, but maybe that's caught up in that sense of knowing that he wants to leave and move on from Fulham and he thinks he can play at a better level. But and I've got no doubt he could grow into that. But when he makes those mistakes, which often really hurt us, because it's what could be a genius pass into the midfield, is just too high risk. It doesn't come off. We lose possession, turn the ball over, and often they're back on us so quickly, and it's very frustrating. Another one of those fragile souls that I'd add to the mix there is Harry Wilson.
Yeah.
On his day, wow, he's magical and mercurial. He's got such a deft foot. But we'll talk about that first opportunity in a minute. But even the cameraman and the director had the sensibility, certainly on our feed, to keep following Harry Wilson as he kind of lamented that miss. And you could see that right up to halftime, it was in his head. He couldn't kind of quickly move on from it. And so that gives you an insight as to what he's dealing with. Sam?
Oh, I was just going to say, he's so, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. He's very, very fragile, our boy Harry, isn't he? Like he's a sensitive little boy, and he can be incredible. He can be so good, but he needs so much padding before he goes into the playground. And if a couple of things don't go his way, I actually feel really sorry for him. I actually feel because if a couple of things don't go his way, it really messes up his whole game. It's a real example of the mental state that these guys have to get into, because sometimes Harry just isn't necessarily there, and it doesn't take that much to wobble him. God bless him.
Well, let's actually go through. Before we talk about the Wolves' goals, let's talk about some of those missed opportunities, because they're very significant for this game.
Yeah.
In terms of what could have been. And I hope I get the order right here. My memory is never quite as good as it should be. 48 hours after these games, it all seems to sort of mesh into one. But the first opportunity from my memory, Alex Iwobi puts a really, really nice little ball through to Pereira, who does really, really well. And that ball, from all angles I saw, looks like it's going in. And Jose Sarr does a very, very good job of keeping that out. So of the three opportunities in the first half, I'm going to say that Pereira's one was probably maybe the toughest and probably the best effort.
Yeah.
So that was kind of unlucky, and we did well to create the chance and actually, get that on target. The second one, which was obviously the Wilson opportunity, Sasa Lukic, as Skibby correctly reminded me, beautiful back heel to Iwobi, is it?
Iwobi,
Yeah.
He's kind of falling over and he puts Wilson through with a really, really clever ball. And Wilson runs onto it, caught on his wrong-sided right side. Should have gone around the keeper. Should have had the confidence to go around the keeper, really. And
Absolutely.
he tries to hit it with the outside of his left boot. And, I think he felt the weight of the world after that miss. And it was a massive miss, really. It would have been such a huge confidence boost for him. And we're a different side. Every side's a different side when they score first, but we really, really need to. And then the third one was remind me again.
Tosin. Crossbar.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it was Reed who squares the ball to Tosin.
That's right.
He's actually got a lot more time than he thinks, but I know he's in the box and it's kind of moving pretty quickly. It's easy to say, control it, have another touch, but he's a centre back.
And it's exactly that. It's one of those chances where you want it to fall to anyone else apart from your centre back. I mean, I commend him for being in the position. I think that's a great. I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I don't know why he was still there. I mean, the corner. I think the set piece had been cleared and reset by that point, but he was still there, which is fair enough. But yeah, you just wanted Molineux, Iwobi, someone at the back post who wasn't your centre half.
To be fair to him, it wasn't absolutely awful.
No, I won't say that.
It could have been miles into the stands, as many a centre back would have done in the past, but it just I guess he just lacked composure in front of goal, which is not that surprising. It's very, very different if the ball's coming in the air. Those guys are very, very used to heading them home, but to feet, you wouldn't really expect him to do that much better. It's just a bit unfortunate that he happens to be the man on the spot. And those, for me, were three colossal opportunities lost or missed.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we lost hope, but we allowed them to get to halftime, albeit with a pretty serious injury. And as I said, things could have been very, very different. I don't know about you guys, but I thought Neto was, really dangerous and pretty high risk playing him because he was clearly not fully fit. And I was actually surprised. I was expecting him to not start and not be part of the game at all, and pretty surprised when he actually made it.
Yeah, no, he was definitely one of the high risk players, I think. But like you say, he was electric from the first minute. And you thought if there's anyone who's going to do you trouble today, it was going to be him. Getting down that right hand side.
With all that being said, though, I'm not sure if we've already covered it before, but just Wolves' side in general in comparison to ours, yes, Pedro Neto is very, very, very accomplished, and they have a pretty good squad, and Gary O'Neill has been very, very impressive, but our squad in theory was so much stronger. Is that a fair assessment? I'm not sure if we've already done this because my internet went out, but
I mean, I think, other than Rao, we've got an absolutely full squad, and we've got fringe players, if I can call them that, actually in really good form. So this is about as good as it gets for us this season for this squad, I would have thought. And you really fancy it. And I mean, obviously, Wolves have had a good season, but I was certainly not intimidated going there, and my impression as the game developed through the first half, we were more than in it, and it's just incredibly frustrating that we couldn't get at least a goal in the first half, And anyway, what did you guys think of Pereira in the first half and in the game in general?
Oh, okay. Because I love him. I really, really love him. But his chance on goal in the first half, really, really good. But if I'm recalling the game as it was, I mean, and to be fair, it wasn't just Pereira, but I just felt like a lot of our guys just weren't really there. Like, I feel like I didn't really see Harrison Reed that much either. Pereira was lacking quite a lot. And yeah, that was in the first half. And then in the second half, he might as well have been a ghost. For me,
and it's not the first time that it's sort of felt. And I'm Team Pereira as much as Sam is. Like, I think he's a great player. I think on his day he can really create chances and make things happen. And you think it's almost as if he's. And when you look at the stats, he's very key to Marco Silva's methodology. So
absolutely,
that's clearly why he gets picked. And I think the odd free kick and the odd corner, which he does have a really good delivery, is just worth him having on the field. But I think this season, and especially on Saturday, he lacked that kind of creative spark from open play. I think he kind of seems like a bit of a passenger at times. But then again, you get that corner, you get that free kick. And I think he's just a great asset to have on the field in that moment. But at the moment, can I see him being dropped in the future? At the moment, no. I think if Harry Wilson had carried on his recent form this weekend, then there would definitely be a case of saying, okay, well, we need to bring Willian back in and move Iwobi to that number 10, like that number 10 spot. But I think the fact that Harry Wilson hasn't really staked that claim, that I can just sort of see Pereira staying where he is, and it won't be potentially going over to the right hand side, bringing Willian back in for the next game. But yeah, I think for me, he's too much of an asset to drop at the moment. But I do see the concerns.
It's hard, isn't it? Because he's not like a liability. Like, he's not necessarily doing anything wrong, but in some games, he's just not bringing that extra little bit that we know he can actually do. So it doesn't necessarily warrant like dropping him until we get somebody better. And you could probably argue maybe like Tom Kearney or even Iwobi can play that role slightly better sometimes. But I always kind of prefer Pereira in there, and maybe that's just a personal bias. But
I could tell you all for free that Silva's not dropping Pereira.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Yeah,
he's
I know
not.
he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we but isn't this just the conundrum, problem, or whatever you want to call it, that is Fulham Football Club? And it's what it means to be a mid-table club. It's, we play in a league surrounded by some of the best players in the world, some of the most well-oiled machines. So, and we're competing with a modest budget, which means we can have players who have some degrees of brilliance, but they're just really the full article. We've got a guy at left back who's an incredible athlete, but he's not the full world-class left back package, is he? He's just not. We've got Pereira, who's, for me, he's got a world-class sort of spot kick specialist foot on him on his day. He's been a bit off colour, really, for a lot of this season, but he can do it. Great on the press. He's creative enough, but he doesn't have all of it. And if he did, he'd be worth 80 or 100 million pounds, and we just don't get those sort of players. Iwobi, all the stuff that we love Iwobi for, he can be a pretty rubbish finisher,
Yeah.
And
it's very longest yard, isn't it? It's like, there's a bunch of like players that everyone has a specialty thing that they do. But
but
and then
it's like having players with one good leg.
yeah,
One
exactly,
incredible leg.
Yeah. No, I've seen the Mighty Ducks. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, look at Harry Wilson on his
Mm.
day, cutting inside on that left foot, like that goal against Brighton. Was it Brighton? Yeah.
Yeah.
Genius. That is a worldie in anyone's book, right?
Mm.
But it just doesn't have it all.
Yeah.
We seem to sort of be accumulating a few athletes, with Traore, and
Yeah.
we've got some pace, but it's maybe this will always be our plight, that we're looking to stitch together. I wouldn't call it a ragtag bunch, but
It is a bit ragtag though.
they're the players, and this is where you need a manager who's got that kind of third eye vision that Marco's got, where he sees people who can do a job for him, and even Polinia. Let's not jump into his game, because I'd like to talk about that separately. But Polinia, we know that he's not the absolute, complete package as a defensive midfielder. He's exciting. He's dangerous. On his day, he's an absolute destroyer. But no one would argue that he's the greatest that ever was. And so maybe the job is just finding these people, keeping them for long enough, helping us survive, helping us move a bit further. And unfortunately, with all of that comes perennial inconsistency, which is why we have a podcast, and it's so much good gold content to talk about.
But it's an interesting point you make, I think, with the team being a team of rejects. Let's put it that way. I mean, you had Bern Leno, who was written off by Arsenal. You had Diop written off by West Ham. You had Willian written off by everyone.
Yeah.
And it's basically just this team which we've put together. Pereira especially as well. Like, went over to Brazil, wasn't really thought that high of them. But we've brought this team in, and the way that they're competing is incredible. But I think it's now we've hit that point of we're now not looking at relegation anymore. I mean, I'm going to say that with so much confidence, but no, we're not hitting relegation anymore. But it's now making that step up again. And I think that's the point that we're now missing is, if we really wanted to be that top 10 team, which could make that real stake for Europe, you can't go against Wolves and miss 3 clear chances and then lose the game. I think there's just that. And it's not just a one-off. I mean, I think I saw or heard Gentleman Jim say it was a bad day at the office. It's getting to a point now where this happened against Burnley. We were all over them. Well, in that game, we did score goals, but then we let them back into the game. Man United at home, we were all over them, really comfortable, lose 1-0 in the last kick of the game. And it's just those sort of points where you're thinking you need someone to really take the game by the scruff of the neck and put away these chances. And if it's not going to be Wilson and co, then we potentially need to find someone who can, or find a way to unlock them that they are more clinical, because we can't keep, especially in our position, we can't keep missing these key chances to then lose to Wolves, which should have been on paper a game that we won.
I've heard Fulham be compared to football rehab, which I actually quite like. And it's very, very apt, and it's very, very true, because Marco Silva in particular has done an amazing job at reforming players that were mutts. Nobody necessarily wanted them anymore. But in the exact same way that Brighton had oh Christ, what was the name of the previous Brighton manager who was almost going to come here? Forgot his name. Went to Chelsea.
Graham Potter.
Yeah. In the same way that they had Graham Potter, and then he built them up, and then De Zerbi came in and then literally took them to another level on top of that. I love Silva. This is not going to be me bashing Silva or me suggesting anything, but all managers will have a shelf life, and I love that man. I do not want Marco Silva to go. Do not misinterpret anything that I'm saying. But in order for us to get to that next point, it is quite likely that we might need another manager to really, really bring it home, because at the moment, Silva is amazing at reformation. No one can question that. But I think we can all agree. There are games that we've played that we should have put away convincingly with a killer instinct, and we don't necessarily do that all the time. We can be amazing on our day, but that's on our day. We always go in with a good fight, but we aren't that team that people fear as such yet. Dad, I can see that you're cooking.
No, I'm not cooking. I just think if I step back from all of that, I think that's pretty harsh. Because I
don't think it should be.
No, because I think it would be fair to judge Silva. It would be fair to judge the fully backed Silva, financially backed.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
For the squad he wants. I know that a manager's job is always to do the best that he has with whatever is in his change room and on his training field. But really, I think he's been kneecapped for the last 12, 18 months. And I don't think he's been allowed to do what he could do. Anyway, let's move on, because we're half an hour in and we've talked about nothing, but it's been good. Let's talk about the goals. I'll just put that back up there so we can focus on that. So I kind of look like I'm a director and I know what I'm doing, but I'm not really. But anyway, we'll put that up there. Let's talk about the goals. Aït-Nouri, the 52nd minute mark. The ball comes in. I can't remember who put the ball in, but Bassi attempts a kind of flick header, which, if you're
it was a half-assed attempt.
If you're getting ahead on that, you should be actually directing the ball out of play, conceding a corner at that point. He's kind of flicked that on, as you might do in front of goal, trying to score one, for me. And I know that's easy to say, but is it fair to say that if the ball falls freely to your opposition in the 6-yard box, you're allowing a shot to get away, that you're probably not defending that as a group that well?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's very clinical finish. I'll give it that. It's very, very clinical.
Like reflexes. Yeah.
Amazing reflex. Yeah.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
Very, very good player. And you know what? He brilliant positioning as well. He finds himself in quite a lot of space. But yeah, Bassi, it's silly. It's silly of Bassi. It's the reasons why we love Bassi in a sense, though. I mean, we love his chaotic charisma, but yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Skivvy.
I was going to say, it's one of those where if he gets a little light touch on it and the ball falls to Robinson and we're away, it's a fantastic defensive header. But the fact that it's fallen to, I think it was Totti at the back post, who was being marked by Molineux, is probably not the best decision. I mean, you don't know what Marco's told or worked on with with Bassi and Tosin in those situations where he's a manager which says, if in doubt, get it out, or is he one of those which is saying, keep the ball alive, keep it like away from danger, which I guess in his head is, towards the byline. If it goes out for a corner, it goes out for a corner. But if it gets that chance to keep in and we can break with it, then potentially that's, a positive for us. But yeah, in all essence, it just doesn't look good. Very limp header, no real conviction, falls to someone not being marked, cut back, and then, yeah, like you say, great finish, sort of similar finish to sort of Bassi against Man United. It's just hit it, make sure it stays true.
If my memory serves me correctly, and I may not be correct here, but it felt like not so much a bad decision by Bassi, but he just looked like he was kind of falling backwards or a little bit under the ball, and he wasn't in a good position, or maybe it was slightly over him, and maybe you could argue that if he actually didn't jump high enough, he wouldn't got anywhere near it. I'm not sure. I need to look at that again, but it felt like not so much a bad decision, but just not a very good effort.
Yeah, it's hard. I think he reacted the best that he could in the moment. In like Bassi always gets involved, and maybe a smarter player might actually leave that and watch his man. Maybe yeah, but I mean, it's the reasons why we love Bassi. So I don't want to crap on him too hard.
No, sure. I mean, it's just one of those shitty things, really.
Yeah.
At this point, it did feel like Wolves had the better halftime talk, and they came out kind of wanting it more than us. Is that fair?
Skibby, what do you reckon? I'll let you go first.
I will commend Gary O'Neill in this instance because I think he set up the team as best as he could, and I think that they had this counter game which was very effective. And I think what really kind of caught us out a little bit is people like Mario Lemina being so far up the pitch. Like, he was a holding midfielder for us. What was he doing up there? But we talked about him briefly, but he was just everywhere. But I think that was kind of Gary O'Neill's take on this was, Fulham have missed 3 massive chances in the first half. Like, this game is ours. Like, it's almost like one of those written in the stars moments. So like, all we have to do is sort of get 1 or 2 goals here, and then this is our game. And I think for them to be fired up with all the injuries that they've got as well, that these are players which potentially may not be starting. I mean, they started, I think it was a debut for the lad up front. I've now forgotten his name, but he was number 63. But it was his debut against Fulham. Fraser, that's it. And he was putting a great shift in. And as soon as he got the ball, I think they just basically told, or Gary O'Neill had told them to swarm around him, get people around him, because against Bassi and Tosin, he's not necessarily going to hold the ball for very long, but he did that very well. And I think if you look back, Fraser, as soon as he sort of gets on the ball, he's always got Lemina there. He's always got Ait Nori on the sort of left side of him, and it was more that kind of left hand side which I noticed was a very, very big stronghold for them. And fair play to them. They played to their abilities. They played to sort of the personnel they have available, and it worked.
Yeah. Now, it actually the second goal from Wolves, I can't remember now who actually attempted the shot on target, which was not on target. Yeah, that's right, Semedo. Yeah, I mean, this is an unfortunate goal. Surely it comes off Tom Cairney's buttock.
Yeah.
And it was never ever going in. It was miles to off. Wicked deflection for Leno. No chance at all. Absolutely no chance. That's kind of the knife in the throat for us at that point. I was wondering. In fact, I was sitting with Jack watching it, and I was saying to Jack, we're 2 goals down. We're at the 70th minute. It's very early for Marco Silva to make his subs, but surely, something's got to happen here.
Yeah.
Well. In all fairness, Sorry, no. Yeah, you go.
No. Carry on, Sam. Carry on.
Oh, I was going to say he did make changes. I mean, he took off Harrison Reed and brought Willian on in the attempt to actually do something. Unfortunately, something did happen, and it was Tom Cairney's bum. Let's just talk about that. Let's talk about the. He's taken off Harrison Reed. He's taken off Pereira, and Polinia comes on Willian. Was that the switch? I think so. No, maybe Polinia did Polinia come on earlier?
No. Let's talk me through João Polinia's entrance and little cameo at Molineux.
Oh, wasn't very good with it.
Should have been much shorter than it actually was.
Yeah, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it earlier when we were discussing the lineup and Silva sticking with Lukic, and in our heads, it may not be true. Maybe he had a stomach virus, but it seems that Lukic kind of had Polini in his head, sitting on the bench, and he was just wondering when he was going to be replaced. for me, on the flip side, Polinia had steam coming out of his ears, sitting on the bench, kind of very annoyed, not at Marco, but just at the situation that he wasn't playing, and probably really annoyed that he hasn't been part of the last couple of weeks of great success. Comes onto the field with his tyres pumped up a little hard for me, and it's just going round trying to, be uber Polinia, and as Skibby sort of referred to, as you both did, he was very fortunate to not get sent off.
Oh my God, was he ever? Was he ever? I could literally see the referee just being like, I could see in his brain, he was going, one more time. One more time. Like he was so patient with Polinia, because I think he must know the context of, like, he's a very excited boy. Calling everybody boys today. I don't know where that's come from.
It just, to me, this is not the first time it's crossed my mind, and it can't be the first time it's entered anyone's head, but just how big a problem is the Polinia discipline problem? I mean, he's well on his way to 15 cards. Never been done before. Yeah. He's only got 4 to go. It took him 5 minutes to get his first yellow, right? He seemed distracted by how much he wanted to get in and get involved. And for him, that means, there was one slide tackle, which was kind of brilliant.
But it was kind of brilliant.
Yeah. But the margin for error was scary. And he pulled it off. And in any other world, if he doesn't execute that perfectly, that's very dangerous, and he's gonna get sent off. Yeah, I don't know. And again, talking about not the Fulham misfits, but the ragtag bunch that is our our squad. That's got to be a problem for his future, with his aspirations of going to a really big club. I don't know that the big clubs are going to be prepared to take that sort of, that sort of dimension on.
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? It's really annoying, because I've already used the "that's why we love him" argument twice tonight. Look, when you get João Palhinha, though, you do undertake that level.
Of course.
What do you think? Like he basically just needs, like, his own insurance to be taken out separately for João Palhinha.
Lloyd's.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, he's. I think it won't hinder him from actually getting involved with, like, bigger clubs. Just because, there's always been this type of crazy player. Think of Pepe, think of even, like, people like Sergio Ramos as well, who are just crazy defenders who have always been a little bit chaotic. I think the problem actually lies more in the fact that he is incredibly chaotic in a very, very fragile system, because maybe in a system where he doesn't necessarily have to feel like he has to take the entire game by the scruff of its neck, he's a lot more reserved and a lot more cautious. And we've seen Polinia at his best, and we know that when Polinia doesn't feel like he has to go Incredible Hulk,
there's something in that.
He's a very, very astute, confident player who can pass and actually has a lot more grace than people actually give him credit for. Ironic, I know. But I think in games like this where Polinia doesn't feel like he has to come on and assert and take the game into his own hands, we don't get this problem. But again, it's the joy of our lovely club.
Yeah. I think with this game in particular, he probably was watching on and realized that we really didn't have control of the midfield.
Yeah.
So I think, and Gomez and Lamina were kind of really just strolling around, if I'm honest. So I think being subbed wound him up, and then coming on to a losing position wound him up. And also probably just seeing how much of a easy game that the opposition were having wound him up even further. So it was just no doubt in my mind that he was just going to come on and absolutely kill someone. You talk about his disciplinary record. I mean, it's a yes and no, really, because he doesn't get red cards. He has, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's had a red card. He should have had a couple, but he hasn't.
Yeah.
But it's just those, when he racks them up and, he gets those 2 match bans or the 1 match ban from collecting all these yellows, that's where it hurts us a little bit. We got quite fortunate in the instance of the last 2 games he missed. We won, so we didn't really miss him too much. But potentially last year, there are elements where we were really missing Molineux and we didn't really have that figure to come in and do a job for us. And I think that's always going to be in the back of our minds, which is we'd love him to stay. We'd love him to be that number 6 that we all dream about. But, as long as we've got a healthy backup to come in when he gets that inevitable ban, I won't really mind too much.
Yeah.
And it works. It absolutely works for us. I just think actually Sam's actually made a very good point about Molineux, and that I think he feels that responsibility to come in and do too much, and maybe that is something that has to be worked on from the management, that need to actually just calm him down and go, hey, you are of most value to us when you go and play your natural game, but just calm the fuck down. And
but that's maturity, though, isn't it? That's literally going like, you have
28.
all the tools. Yeah, but we all know 28-year-olds who aren't that mature. Come on, let's be frank here. These are not philosophers just sitting around just discussing Nietzsche. These are Premier League football players. Okay, but if you think Willian, I think is a really good example. Willian is somebody who has all of those tools, but then when he comes on, wherever he comes on, if he's starting or if he comes on the 60th minute, he adjusts to the game and he goes, I know I can do a lot, but it's more important to kind of like control this game now. And I think that in lies the difference.
Well, lovely segue there, Sam, because I wanted to talk about my favorite player. And I wondered how you guys thought he actually fared when he did come on. Well, let me jump in, and unless you've got something to add, Skip.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say was that for me, it's yet another confirmation that Willian is not a great impact sub. I'm not sure if it's his 35, 36 years of age and that he doesn't bring energy, or maybe it's just not him. For me, we always get so much more out of him when he starts the game. He's influential. He's pulling the strings, and he almost shapes the way in which we're going to play, and the team plays around him and through him. When he comes on, maybe we don't look for him enough and channel enough through him. He's always good when he gets the ball. He doesn't look rusty, but he's got to find his way into the game when the game already has a kind of its own rhythm. I don't think we're not good enough to bring him into the game when he comes off the bench. I just don't feel it.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because I was listening to a podcast, which I don't know whether you guys catch it, which the footballers football podcast or something, but it's like Kearney and Mikel Antonio. And Kearney was talking about how hard it is to come in off the bench into a game, because he finds that, all the lads on the pitch have already had their second wind, where there's, you've got to try and you feel more shattered before you've even started for some reason. But I think that, and I'll give Willian the benefit of the doubt here, that, you've got, a Wolves defence who was quite settled. You've got players which have obviously been playing 70 minutes, and for Willian to come in, make that change and make that impact, it's just not his game. Whereas I imagine Wilson works much better as being sort of that more youthful, much more sort of agile. It's just a great player to bring off the bench and make things happen. Adama Traore, we see that, he comes on, he can just burn and just go. Whereas I don't think Willian is that kind of player. He sort of loves to sort of grow into the game. He's never one that sort of, from the first minute, he's in, but he grows into the game. But so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that one.
For me also, he's a kind of player who will cleverly go and find space, but you're going to have to pass the ball to him, and then he'll do something brilliant with it. But he won't go and get the ball and won't run hard to go and collect the ball, retrieve it, and win it off someone. And, that's fine because Willian in open spaces doing clever things is fine by me. But, I just thought, and it's a difficult one because he's had a few injury problems. Who knows what the state of his body actually is. And maybe part of that was just that they didn't think they could get even 70 minutes out of him. So the only option was to have him on the bench.
For me, bringing Willian in at the end of a game is a bit like having Rick Rubin come in for the last 2 songs of your album. It's he's designed to be a maestro. He's designed to kind of create the game and create everything. And then when he still comes on at like the 70th minute, he's still just going to be Willian. Yeah, like if you think of Adama Traore and the impact that he came on when he immediately came, I mean, in the inverse of it, Adama Traore for me is kind of destined to just be an impact sub. That's what they are excellent at. He came in and he's literally just like a shot of adrenaline. That's what he does. Would I want him to start a full 90 minutes? Probably in the Carabao Cup game, but yeah.
There was a good article there's a good article in The Athletic about Traore. I think it might have been Peter Rutzler who wrote it. And it was talking about him coming to Fulham and with other options that he was looking at. And one would think he would be interested in, starting and, playing, not being always the bridesmaid coming off the bench. And that's where, and maybe injuries have played a part this season as well. But, is he our best starter on the wing? I don't think he is. Having said that, did anyone know that Adama Traore had a wicked left foot?
I mean, he has kind of shown glimpses of just having a rocket on him. It's just never been consistent.
That was an incredible shot.
Well, do you remember the goal he basically sealed our fate in a couple seasons ago? It was that was because that was again like around about like the last 80 minutes or so. He just put in an absolute rocket from the right hand side, and it was it just completely sealed our fate, and then we were relegated.
Great to see. There's some confidence there, isn't there? Because there is a player there. I think. Unfortunately, because he's got that special athletic skill of being so damn fast, it probably shines a very hot white light on the things he can't do that well.
But there are players. There are players that are
basic. Player.
Well, I think football's really, really changed just with the amount of rotation that goes on in a game. I mean, if you think of like Guardiola and think of how like Man City basically structure their game around rotating their squad even within the game. And I think Traore is an amazing example of that system. And I know he's never played for Man City, but he just works so well, and he just seems so comfortable and just so confident in that role. Like he's on the sideline and he's literally warming up and he's like, yeah, I'm ready. He's like a professional wrestler. Like he's literally going in to kill, and that's what he does. And he's been doing that for a really, really long time. If anything, I would actually quite like a few of those guys because they are so useful when you get them off.
Hey, so the other player that we saw, who we haven't seen a lot of since his loan move to Fulham, was Broja. What did you guys think of his little performance?
It was energetic. He came on, he clearly had a purpose, and I think it was an interesting way to see him because we've never really seen two strikers on the field before, or under Silva especially. So he came on to kind of partner Molineux, which was an interesting part. But no, he seemed to be energetic. He was battling for the ball. I think it was his header which eventually sort of led to the cross from Robinson. Then got to us the consolation goal. But no, I think, did he do enough for me to become the number 9? Probably not.
Yeah.
Given Muniz' current reign of form. But it was interesting to sort of see a glimpse that there is a trier there. There is someone who can be that impact sub off the bench. So I think it was a decent cameo, but nothing more.
Do you know what? I will happily eat my words in like a year or two's time if he chooses to stay with us. But I don't know why, and I will never necessarily claim to be an expert, but I just see something there. I see what it could potentially be. He actually quite excites me. I actually really like him. It's annoying, isn't it? Because I see something there. But I'm not sure when it's actually come to fruition or if it's going to come to fruition. I think I just like the way that he kind of like moves around the pitch and just finds space. Yeah, it could be another Muniz, or it could be absolutely nothing, but I like him.
Yeah, look, separate question, but did Muniz do anything to strengthen his case for a permanent candidate for number 9 next season?
He did a really good turn at the start of the game.
Oh, that was incredible.
That was awesome. Yeah.
I think he had a header. I think it was a header. But no, I mean, I didn't see the same tenacious Muniz, which was harassing and, just being a nuisance. I didn't see that. But then again, didn't really see those sort of long balls up to him that we were sort of been playing against Brighton and so it's almost like we changed the tactics, which didn't work in Muniz's favour. I mean, based on the last episode, I'm still, the jury's out for me. I'm not going to commit to anything, but I don't think we played into his strengths against Wolves, and therefore I think that's a little bit unfair to sort of discredit him for that. But yeah, I think it was just a bad day at the office all round for everyone, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alex Iwobi scores the last goal, which must have been the last play of the match.
Yeah, and was.
Kind of a frustrating point to get a goal, but better than nothing, I guess. But Jack has landed in Melbourne and is sitting in an Uber watching and following on the live stream, and I know he wants to be involved, so he's posed a question, and let's discuss it. And he says, short answer only. I like the way he's still trying to direct us.
I know. And he's having a stroke until we literally just answer the question. I know how he works.
But I love the way he says short answer only.
I know.
What
I saw
lost
that.
us the game? Poor finishing or poor defending or just bad luck? Sam, hold it. Skibby, you.
Do you know what? I actually reckon I reckon genuinely the first half lost us the game. I think Skibby's exactly right. I think Gary O'Neill had a chat with Wolves at halftime and literally said they have missed 4 really, really solid chances. We can take this. And they did. And they got a really solid goal on us because they put an intense amount of pressure. And then after the second goal, we kind of just realized that we were out of our depth there. Out of our depth against Wolves. It's frustrating. But that's what I think happened.
Yeah, definitely poor finishing for me. It's just... Yeah, I mean, you look at... I'm not even going to say poor defending for the second goal, because you watch, I think it was... Fraser tried to pull the ball back. It took a deflection of Tosin. It fell to one of their players. It then took another deflection off Kearney. It was just all nasty. I wouldn't say it's bad defending. It was just really just luck of the green or rub of the green, I'd say. But again, I wouldn't say it was this, it was that. It was just on our own heads, poor finishing. Should have put the game to bed in the first half. Easy as that.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's interesting,
if we had Sam, chill out there, sunshine.
No.
I do have a mute button, and I'm not afraid to use it. If we had scored or created no chances, and then somehow, a couple of brilliant goals from them, or even poor defending, you might be left wondering. But in the first half, we had the ascendancy. We had the opportunity to go in at halftime to maybe 3 goals up. The Pereira thing was it's a pretty tough chance from there, to be honest. It's definitely scoreable, but tough. But I think if you have that many relatively easy chances for at least 2 out of those 3, it's on your head, and we have to take responsibility. And I can promise you that Marco Silva would be taking that view. He would be furious. He'd be furious at that result.
Do we write our letters of complaints and send them into Fulham for them to just assess, or do we just rely on Silva to listen to the podcast for his next trip to Tottenham?
Look, I normally get a little text message just after we finish this, and then get on a call directly with him. He's really annoying. Can't get rid of him.
Yeah,
but
he can Portuguese the entire time.
Yeah, my Portuguese isn't great, but
In that case, you must tell him to Wilson all week is training, finish one-on-ones with his right foot. I think that's that would be his training for the week. It was just What a
How did you get this number?
But anyway, look, I think that's probably about it. I could take you through the table, but no surprise, it leaves Fulham in 12th place, which we seem to be galvanized or superglued to at the moment, which is not the worst thing in the world, but I guess we hope for more. Can we just, before we wrap it up, can we just briefly look ahead to the weekend? Or is it international break, or have we got a game this weekend?
Very good question. Which we should already
believe.
Yeah, I think it is the international break. After which we host Tottenham at home. Is that right?
Yes. Oh wait, do we host them at home? Not sure.
I think we do.
Tottenham at home on the 16th.
Did you guys see what Tottenham did to Villa?
Yeah, I mean, they had a red card, Villa, and then sort of the goals flowed. But I mean, judging from, and this is probably going to be even more controversial, but judging by the Villa that came to the Cottage, I wasn't impressed by them. When I read the headline that they said, "Oh, the win over Fulham takes Villa into the top 4," and I was like, "Really? That was a top 4 team?" But I don't know. But I mean, Tottenham are Tottenham, aren't they? They either absolutely destroy teams or they just completely struggle. And I wasn't convinced when we played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but that's with them now with a bit more confidence, I suppose, a bit more settled under Postecoglou. Again, it's just like when we were talking about the Wolves game. It's hard to explain or to predict such a mixed bag of form from Spurs, such a mixed bag from Fulham. You don't know who's going to turn up. But I think, it'll be an interesting game, that's for sure. I mean, I can't imagine, famous last words, but Timo Werner's leading the line, isn't he? So,
do you know what? Yeah.
A lot of faith in him.
Unpopular. I mean, I reckon we might do it. I reckon it's a chaotic enough result to justify us probably being able to do it, because I feel that we're only really getting chaotic results at the moment, and we're getting them at the Cottage as well. Because our home return's actually been pretty good this season, and we've already beaten them again in the cup, which is a very different circumstance. But I think if the stars align and Silva picks it right, I think it's just crazy enough to work.
Yeah, it's the one team that we certainly we did well against Spurs in the cup, but it's the one big team that we still actually haven't brought to heel. When we've looked, well, we beat Arsenal, we beat Man United, even though that's not really the achievement that it would have been a few years ago.
We've given City a really good run.
It's still Man United at Old Trafford, so I'm taking that. Even Chelsea is, not the win it should be. Very, very satisfying, but it just feels like it would be really, really great to beat Spurs. And as well as they are doing, they're not invincible. They're absolutely not invincible. Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we close it out?
I mean, I'd love to hear how Skibby got the origin of his name, but I feel like that's a different podcast, and we can get to that at a later point. But outside of that, I've had a lovely time.
So I'll leave that on a cliffhanger until next time.
So before we do go, there's one piece of housekeeping that we really must do, and that is to acknowledge one of our absolute regular stalwarts' birthdays today. And I can tell that he's probably already, it must be pretty early where you are, Steve, but it looks like he's having a pretty good day already, because he's typing caps locks in reverse and the lettering's a bit all over the place. But a very, very happy birthday to Steve Reynolds following along.
Big up,
always
Steve.
Does. And I hope you're having a great day, and I hope Emma's looking after you, and I hope you've got some fun things planned.
We love you, Steve.
And for everyone following along, thanks very much. And even Jack gets to say his bit. Are you at the hotel yet, Jack?
We're not going to wait. We're not going to wait for that. We're not going to wait for that. That could be 15 more minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, guys, for having us. Thank you, Sam, for joining in and saying quite a lot.
Thank you. I always do. And my stream might be broken, but have we got a record number of streams attached to it? I feel that. I mean, again, it could be broken, but if it's not, this is an incredible innings.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Great to see.
And Skibby, thanks very much for joining us. It's really good to have you on board. Dave was going to be with us today, but unfortunately, his family's come down with a plague, so he couldn't make it. But hopefully, we'll see him again soon. Also, before we sign off, can I implore you and ask you very kindly, if you love listening to That's So Craven, to like and subscribe, and it certainly does help to get a notification, whether it be on X or wherever you get your podcasts. So that would be most appreciated. Thank you, guys. I've enjoyed it. I actually prefer to be sitting back and lounging in my chair and taking the odd question to be doing this job, but it's been fun, something different. So yeah, thanks for chiming in and listening to my nonsense, and I've enjoyed it as always.
Perfect.
And as always,
no, I'm not going to say
no. What do you mean no?
I'm just going to say, as we always say on this podcast, come on, you whites.